Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to cover the past, present, and future of artificial intelligence in 30 minutes. You ready for that? All right, so I'm going to ask each and every one of the panelists here to say a few words about the individual company they represent and use one word to describe the state of AI in their eyes, starting with Gareth.
Okay, well, let's reverse the question. I think the state of AI is strong. I work for Voya Investment Management. We're actually deploying AI directly into our investment processes across quant and fundamental discretionary investing.
Say a few words about your company.
Voya Investment Management, we manage about 350 billion of assets across fixed income and equities, and we operate most countries in the world.
Thank you. Ken?
Hi, I'm Ken So. I'm the founder and CEO of Octagon. We are a Gen AI startup. We're actually backed by Andrew Ng's AI fund and as well as Salt. What we do is we help hedge funds and asset managers in 10x their speed of work. So our focus is around productivity. And we built a system that really tackles the most complex financial research tasks. So, one word about the state of AI, I would say naive. And the reason I say that is a year from now when we're sitting here, we're going to look back on some of these models that were put out, we would deem them as pretty naive type models.
Igor?
Yeah, so I used to run the multimodal research team at IBM where we discovered the baby version of Watson. And when they didn't want to greenlight it, like Cartman from South Park, I said, screw you guys, I'm going home. And I picked off some of our top scientists and engineers, stood up the last company. 5 years later, it was acquired by Amazon to develop what many of you know as Alexa. So Alexa is my older sister's name, and the code name for it was Pryon. So we decided to catch her on football. We knew that AI was going to come to more serious pursuits. And we started working at the intersection of AI and knowledge management. We essentially have the same backers that took the quantum computing division out of Google. World Economic Forum is one of our clients behind the scenes. We're the knowledge cloud that powers them, NVIDIA, and a number of other brands. And I would say my one word is caution.
Great. Thank you. Igor, why don't you continue and let us know, in your mind, what is the number one impact AI is having on Wall Street?
Well, let me tell you an impact that Wall Street already had on the AI industry. Everybody thinks that it's a magical time for AI and it's all starting to accelerate. Guess what? All the things that you're enamored by should have happened 10 years ago. Do you know why it didn't happen 10 years ago? And that's because when Jim Simons started Renaissance Capital, he gutted our IBM research team when he saw that hidden Markov models were relevant to trading and things of that sort. And so a lot of those early folks ended up going to Wall Street, and that slowed down our ability to innovate in human language technologies like speech recognition, machine translation, and the like. So now in some ways, I'm just happy that it's happening during my lifetime, because otherwise we were kind of waiting for all the things to essentially coalesce where the processing, the networking, and the power. I think you're going to get within our lifetime the concept that in government circles they used to call total information awareness and deeper levels of transparency, which is going to not just give you better decision support, but it's going to give you decision advantage, not just decision advantage, but also decision dominance. The commercial entities that operate like intelligence agencies are going to be the ones that survive and thrive through the transition to the next decade.
Ken, what do you think? Number one impact.
Yeah, our view is that the biggest impact we think AI, particularly around Gen AI, is going to be, it's going to made in Wall Street is really the how investment decisions are being made. Today, if you are given, if you just take an example, look at the alt data world, which is roughly $20 billion industry already, is growing like 50+%. But that's a market for only the top 50 funds, the top 50 hedge funds. You got this long tail of mid-sized, long tail of hedge funds that don't have data science team or data analysts to be able to process that data. Now you have access to these LLMs to be able to really power the analysis of that data. So really, kind of helping you separate the signals from the noise, and really be able to, reduce that information overload that you would currently get. So I think there's that fundamental change that's going to, take place across all of Wall Street, starting with how, you hire people and how, organization and teams are being set up. Now that, we can prove that LLMs can actually get to the level of a senior financial analyst, that can pass a Series 7 or that can pass a CFA exam. I think so the level of sophistication is just going to continue to rise.
Gareth? Yeah, so I definitely think that AI will transform Wall Street, and not necessarily just because AI is great. It's because Wall Street's kind of easy to transform, right? There's a lot of inefficiency and mess in there that really doesn't need to be there in an industry. So AI is in a great position to help streamline all of that mess. A quick analogy, which I think plays out pretty well. If you think about aircraft and aircraft travel back in the 50s and 60s, you used to have 6 people up there in the cockpit, right? An engineer like me, a navigator, a couple of pilots, etc. At that point in time, you had like 10 million people flying. It wasn't as safe. You had to spend 3 months of your annual salary to travel to my country, Australia. Speed forward to today, you literally have billions of people travel a year safely. You spend 3 weeks of your salary to get to Australia. I don't recommend it. It's too damn far, but it's 3 weeks of your salary. And a flight management system has this decision dominance that Igor's talking about. So that's the world we're getting to: better, faster, stronger, and it's already happening. One thing I'll say is, from my perspective, being in the world of applying AI to finance since 2012, it kind of happened very slowly and then all of a sudden. So now everything is changing quite quickly, but it did take a while before it cut through.
What about Main Street? A regular Joe or Joe on the street here in New York. What is the implication, number one implication AI is having on that person?
Yeah, well, hopefully what will happen is there will be 1,000 inefficiencies in their life which are slightly improved. And so you get this bottom-up effect that aggregates to improving all of our quality of life. Because the direction is super clear. The direction is obvious. It's that we all can move up the scale of value in terms of our day-to-day tasks, because AI is starting to take care of the bullshit and rubbish that we all have to deal with in our day-to-day lives and our occupations. I hope, and this is a total speculation, but my hope is that it will finally be the thing that cracks through on healthcare, not because it helps top down at all, but because it helps us individually bottom up. That's what I think is one of the big impacts it could have.
Can you agree?
Yeah, I echo some of that sentiment. For us, living in Silicon Valley, what we see, especially in kind of the corporate America, is, it's already a lot of, kind of the early adopters already deploying ChatGPT in their enterprise and in the organization about a year ago now, and they're tracking how, what is that productivity gain and how that is, impacting their organization. And one thing that we're already seeing is how they hire people, and we're seeing that ourselves. As productivity goes up, you got new job creation, compensation goes up. So you're already seeing like compensation packages that normally you would see like for professional athletes. Now you're seeing for an LLM engineer or a prompt engineer, and we're seeing flood of that resumes that are kind of having those type of skill set. Less so the just a software engineer. So I think there's that dynamic of who do you hire now is really kind of changing quite a bit. And just to echo on some of the relevant gaps, I think teacher is a space that I'm personally interested in seeing how this can play out, and especially in the Bay Area where you don't see a whole lot of high quality teachers living in a very high cost area. So I think that a big gap that can be solved.
Yeah, for Main Street, I think for them AI is going to be paradoxical. On one hand, you will have these tremendous improvements in healthcare. I personally believe in the next 24 months, some previously incurable disease we'll discover a way around it as well. So that's exciting. But on the flip side, I mean, they're seeing a lot of these AI systems curated by consumer tech companies, which are apex predators, right? That shove endless ads in their faces and program, videos in their children's eyes and things of that sort as well. And so they're going to be wary of what's happening there and whether the regulatory regime that we're going to be hearing from the policymakers, the lawmakers here shortly, are going to be able to keep up with these advancements to make sure that the same hot mess that we have in social media isn't going to happen again. And so there's going to be experimental regulation now to try to get ahead of it, whether it's in Europe, whether it's California, whether it's the executive order that we already saw. And then how do you balance that out with all of us, needing to color outside the lines and experiment with these new technologies as well? Those are some of the things that I think are going through their minds.
Igor, for some of us in the audience who are following NVIDIA on a regular basis, seems like that company in particular is grabbing a lot of the profits in the entire AI industry. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but in your mind, in the next 5 years, who is going to be the company that will be the number one moneymaker? Is it going to be like a GPU company like NVIDIA, or it's an infrastructure company like a Qualcomm, or is it going to be like an app company? What do you think? Who's going to be the number one moneymaker in the next 5 years?
Well, here's the best part. Here's the best part. It's going to be a curveball. It's somebody that we've never heard of before. It's going to be somebody that we've never heard of before as well. And the rest of the ecosystem, whether it's the hardware or the LLMs, the large language models, what you know as foundation models, those will all get commoditized. So we haven't even met that individual. We haven't even met that company yet.
That sounds like an answer from ChatGPT 4. Are you sure that's from
I
you?
don't take peyote, so I'm not hallucinating. But no, it's a hopeful message that basically said, as Bezos said, it's still first pitch, first inning. The writing's, not on the wall yet. There's going to be plenty, left to discover. And the market opportunity for this can't even be measured. I mean, some people will say, well, just for the knowledge management thing, it could be $73 billion TAM. And then others are saying, well, it could be in the trillions. Now, Main Street also cares about this. Am I in trouble with my job or not? Well, no, you're only going to lose your job if you can't figure out how to leverage AI in your workflows, right? If you look at the dawn of the information age, it's just the middle managers that didn't want to figure out how to use computers that were essentially displaced. But as a tech industry, it's our responsibility to democratize access to these tools so that they can benefit from those productivity boosts. So it's an interchange. It's a bilateral thing that needs to happen. They have to be willing to re-educate themselves, and we have to create user experiences that are welcoming, that leverage some of the existing muscle memory and training that they have.
Ken?
Well, 5 years is a lifetime for startups, but taking it more from a kind of short-term, medium-term horizon. If you look at kind of the value stack today, a lot of capital, from VCs that are flowing into AI space, you would argue majority of that capital goes into the infrastructure players, including the NVIDIAs of the world, the Googles and the AWS. Similar to the last VC cycle, where half of that capital, to the startup world, ended up with the Google and this, running ads for Facebook. We're seeing that trend right now. Like, why would a startup need $100 million to build an app? Because they have to support that infrastructure. You could have just take debt on that hardware. So there's this allocation of the capital currently that we exist, and the benefactor of that currently are the chip manufacturers. And I think the trend that's happening is, if you look at NVIDIA, what they reported, 70% of their volume is actually on inference, which is, I think a year ago was more like 50-50. So the inference, which means that when models are put into production, the amount of volume it's going to generate is going to be 100 times more. So whoever really plays in that inference space are going to take advantage of that capital, where that capital is going. Longer term, I think that pyramid will flip, where the value stack is actually going to be at the apps layer, and that's that's where domain expertise is important. Being able to actually solve business problems is important rather than just being that, commoditized infrastructure layer.
Gareth? Yeah, Igor's 100% right. No one knows where that comes from, right? I'm looking for it. I'd love to invest in that. But just think in practice, like Google was offered $1 million. They almost took it because who foresaw that? Netflix offered to sell themselves for $50 million to Blockbuster. Blockbuster wisely said, no, you're too risky. So you can't see this stuff, but it's not going to be the incumbents, that's for sure. The last thing to say is that there could be a much more interesting play here rather than just a infrastructure game. Like, which companies and industries out there have a ton of internal frictions that can be ironed out? Like, maybe it's ExxonMobil, maybe it's JP Morgan, maybe it's a large incumbent that can do a lot with AI. So the value capture of this incredible technology, it may not be the commodity play of infrastructure or even the source of LLMs. Maybe they become a commodity, and it's actually the values captured by players that are early in adopting it.
Interesting. When I thought about crypto, for example, it used to be called Web 3.0, and then you got Web 2.0 regulators essentially dragging that back towards 2.0. Now the state is probably more like Web 2.5. This is where the original Web 3 innovation, etc., became something different because of regulations involvement. And then you have the Web 2 era companies in technology and finance, BlackRocks, JP Morgans, etc., Googles and Apples getting involved as well in some manner. Do you see regulatorily, Gareth, that there might be some pull for AI to slow down a little bit, especially in light of this whole conflict with the future of humanity potentially, machine taking over human race as a concern?
Well, that's the only question? Wow, that seems easy to answer, that one. Look, I don't know, but on the regulation front, the history of making a bet that regulation will stop innovation is not a good bet, right? Taking Uber, we all use Uber. For 2 weeks there, they were going to be shut down in all countries. So the thing with innovation, and again, being based over in London at the moment, it's pretty clear that if one regulator happens to be very onerous and shuts down some innovation over here, there's a competitive innovation somewhere else that pops up, whack-a-mole style, and then you will have to chase that down. So I think innovation beats regulators hands down any time of the day.
Okay, you're based in Northern California. Innovation beats regulation?
Yeah, I think the unfortunate part is for every 100 startup that have good intention, you have one bad actor that generates 1,000 times more harm, and that will trigger these regulatory overreach that will a lot of times stymie startups. I am relatively for regulation, but rather like how they're implementing it is really kind of be key. The bill that's being passed, I think, looking at what attribute of the model is being deployed and how the model has been done, that is going to be difficult for any startup to operate under. But rather more focused on the output, regulating on that is really kind of where I think there's a bit of a middle ground. There was I saw in the news a British engineering company that there was got stipend $25 million because somebody had a deep fake on the CFO and they put in the Zoom call. And so things like that, I think it really, creates a lot of, doubt about this technology. And I think that those are the things that we definitely need to combat. There are startups, trying to go after these type of SMS phishing or smishing, they call it, that are because of, GPT. When GPT came out, SMS phishing went up 1,000 times. And so those are things that I think both the startup world and the regulators need to kind of step in.
Igor?
I had an uncle once tell me, Igor, remember this, a good country lawyer knows the law, a great country lawyer knows the judge. And so what we did is we hired a head of government affairs so that we can go ahead and influence, some of the stuff behind the scenes in Europe, in the US, and things of that sort. just to make sure that it's at least a responsible expression and there's still a voice for small, medium businesses, as one of our early investors was Steve Case's fund in DC area called Rise of the Rest. Now that's a positive vision. Let me give you the negative vision. I'm on the board of With Honor. It's essentially a group that's going to present itself here shortly, moderating the congressional panel. And we went to Ukraine and we went to the front lines. And let me say this, the thing that everybody worried about on sci-fi Terminator, we already, as a human species, have AIs connected to triggers that are making their own decisions whether or not to drop munitions on other human lives already. So the genie's already out of the bottle, and there is no UN, there's no EU, there's nothing that's regulating against the use of these things in more military intelligence applications as well. I remember I was one of the last to see Kissinger, and one of the things he said during his talk was, with nuclear non-proliferation, I could count the warheads. But how can I do that with AI?
In terms of genie being outside the bottle already, if you were to think about the next, I know Gareth, you don't like 5 years, but let's say 5 years. What will be the next big thing in AI technology?
I think one of the things that's oft described is all of us having a digital twin, and essentially agent-based computing that will just automatically do these things for us as well. That's a positive thing that at least is going to happen to all of us productivity-wise. Because look, the information overload out there is not human scale anymore for us to take positive decisions in order to support our workplaces, communities, and things of that sort as well. So that's the mundane answer for how this stuff gets leveraged in enterprise context. And let me say this, you're all sitting there almost in a stupor post-lunch, which is normal, but all of you should be having goosebumps, because the thing people imagined for millennia, the Tower of Babel, it's close to being solved. You're going to have something that's going to be agnostic to the human language that things are authored, recorded, and captured in. It's not going to matter the underlying system of record where it's stored, and it's not going to matter what the underlying object type is, audio, video, image, text. It's going to be the great force multiplier that's going to allow us to see well past our noses, so that if you need to solve a particular problem, you not only have your university's assets, not just your commercial entities' assets, or even your nation states, you're going to get the sum total of human ingenuity behind you as well. That for me is an absolute thrill, and why we're all thinking that it's going to create all sorts of new things, even to support climate science, right? New battery chemistries, new medicines, and things of that sort.
Ken?
Yeah, I think along those lines, I think what's going to be interesting to see is having these generative models, ALM models, being at the edge. Think of it as your mobile device. And what that does is it could ultimately be able to learn from your memory and be able to mimic your memory and ultimately clone yourself. And it sounds a bit narcissistic, but what if there's duplicates of yourself that can do things that you don't want to do and be able to expand that human capacity? What it cannot replace is your creativity and your empathy, and I think those human attributes are going to live long, and your culture, your heritage. But what it can do is things that it can learn from your driving behavior to what you've been to photos that you take. So this whole idea of multimodal that some of these players have deployed can be very important to make this happen. And already in Silicon Valley, we are seeing startups kind of trying to build something similar. So we're not that far away from seeing a clone of yourself, Rick.
Yeah, so from the coalface of AI, for many years, I am long human. That is for sure. If anything, this technology is just going to allow us to do the things that matter. You remember all of these great scientific revolutions that occurred by Newton sitting outside getting hit by, apocryphally getting hit by an Apple, etc. All of these people had time to think and do useful things. We don't have any of that anymore, right? We're busy being busy doing low value stuff. It's not necessary, and AI is going to help us through time relieve a lot of that friction, and that's going to leave us with a lot more, the creative folks amongst us, with a lot more time to do extremely interesting things. So I'm definitely long humanity in this. It's not an AI story. It's way more interesting what's going to happen to humanity than what's going to happen to technology.
Well, let me thank all of you. We're going to go into the last minute here. We'll do a lightning round. So I'm going to ask a serious rapid fire questions. Yes or no answer, or a one-word answer if it's not a yes or no. Starting with Gareth, then Ken, and then Igor, and then just keep going like that. Ready? All right. Who's going to dominate investing in artificial intelligence, government or private sector?
I will.
Are you government or private sector?
Private sector, yeah.
Okay. Are you fake?
No.
Okay. Ken?
Private sector.
Private.
Who's going to win the AI race ultimately? The United States or the People's Republic of China?
United States.
U.S.
U.S.
I'll make sure Beijing hears that. Will machine ever take over the human race?
No.
Not in our lifetime.
Not in your lifetime.
Yeah.
But maybe after that.
Maybe.
After the machines kill you.
Potentially. Or some of us here.
What do you think your longevity would be? Just kidding. Igor.
Maybe.
I'm sorry?
Maybe. Good answer, yeah.
Which United States state will be the AI leader in 5 years? Are you familiar with all the states in the United States? It'd be boring to say California, but go ahead.
I can't pass, can I? So I'm going to say Florida.
Florida?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because that's where the intelligent people are moving, apparently.
Ken?
It's a tough question because I am from California. I got to say California.
Igor?
Maybe he said Florida because GPUs require water cooling and all the floods that they get there is going to help. It's going to be North Carolina for reasons you don't know yet.
Awesome.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
Because you live there.
No, not me. There's other things there that people don't know about. You don't typically put your critical infrastructure in places that people know the critical infrastructure is at.
Interesting.
Well, look at the people in the audience here. Gareth, how many of these people will be out of a job because that job is going to AI in 5 years?
Nobody specific.
Yeah, all the investors here.
These intelligent, attractive.
Yeah, very intelligent, handsome-looking individuals.
0%. No reason to be out of a job.
How about that? 0%. Can't.
Zero.
Hmm?
Zero.
Zero.
Wow. Last question. Are you going to willingly install Neuralink in your brain? Yes or no?
No.
Why not?
Why? Why?
Yeah, why would you not do that?
It's I don't see the need. Yeah.
Ken?
No, because there are other interfaces to get.
Igor?
No, I mean, humans are quantum computers already. We connect to quantum waves. Why do I need it? We already distrust social media. So you want to chip in from the most antisocial people on planet Earth to what, beam ads in our heads? No. My parents are both artists, by the way. So there's something to the aesthetic and majesty and art behind human beings that will never be replicated. Good luck.
Well, this is a very optimistic group. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking them.
Thank you.